A white-hot July sun climbs above the twin horns of a dormant volcano in Galilee, and every heartbeat in the Crusader host seems to drum against the inside of steel helms. The stench of queer bouillie leather mingles with the sour reek of water skins long since emptied, and the wind that slips across the basalt ridges carries only one promise: thirst. Downslope, an endless ribbon of gleaming helms and horsehair banners moves with predatory ease. Ayyubid cavalry riding like poured mercury, their green and black flags rippling beneath Quranic calligraphy that reads, "Victory is from God, and conquest is near." At their center rides Yusuf ibn Ayyub, Salah ad-Din to friends, Saladin to foes, calm as if reviewing a parade rather than orchestrating a battle meant to unmake a kingdom. On the higher ridge, the battered kingdom of Jerusalem has marshaled virtually every sword it can scrape together. The gold lion pennons of King Guy de Lusignan, the white cloak of Grandmaster Gérard de Riedefort, the scarlet cross of Reynald of Tripoli, and the somber black shrouds of the Hospitallers. Somewhere in that shimmering column rides the true cross itself, relic of Christ's crucifixion, its jeweled reliquary glittering more hopefully than any spring forgotten by the parched infantry below. When the first Ayyubid trumpets sound, their brass notes bounce between the extinct craters like echoes of an approaching storm. Yet what truly terrifies the Crusaders is not the war cry of an enemy, it is the rasp of parchment-dry lips, the slosh of half a wineskin, the knowledge that yesterday's march burned away the water for today's fight. In the next 8 hours, dehydration will prove deadlier than scimitar, the shade of a single acacia worth more than a knight's ransom. And when the sun finally dips behind the Horns of Hattin, Saladin's green crescent will have folded itself around the Crusader cross like a serpent on a sacrificial altar, ushering in the fall of Jerusalem and igniting the call for the Third Crusade. To grasp how the Horns of Hattin became the hinge on which the Latin kingdom of Jerusalem swung from shaky survival to near extinction, we must backtrack a decade to the patchwork politics of the Levant. In 1177, the Crusader states looked deceptively secure. King Baldwin IV, the Leper King, defeated Saladin at Montgizard and earned applause from European chroniclers who hailed him as God's afflicted champion. Yet beneath the miracle lurked rot. Baldwin's leprosy ensured a short reign. Baronial factions feuded. Fortresses demanded coin the treasury did not always have. And the military orders, Templars, Hospitallers, operated as quasi-independent corporations of war. Across the Jordan and Nile valleys, Saladin was forging something rarer than a strong army: a shared identity among Syrians, Egyptians, Kurds, and Bedouin under the banner of Sunni revival. After consolidating Cairo and Damascus, he spent the 1180s waging economic and psychological warfare, raiding Galilean fields, capturing caravan routes, and ransoming Frankish nobles for more money than Jerusalem could mint in a year. Each skirmish was a laboratory. Saladin mapped fortification weaknesses, scouted water holes, bribed Bedouin guides, and, most crucially, took prisoners to extract the rhythms of Frankish campaigning. Their reliance on heavy cavalry shock, their tendency to overextend for glory, their vulnerability to heat. By 1186, King Baldwin IV was dead, succeeded briefly by Baldwin V, an 8-year-old who lasted less than 18 months. The crown passed to Guy de Lusignan, a Poitevin knight whose political savvy lagged miles behind his pride. His reign was immediately tested by Reynald of Châtillon, Lord of Ultra-Jourdain, whose raids on Muslim caravans violated truces and outraged Cairo's merchants. In winter 1186-87, Reynald's men attacked a caravan rumored to carry Saladin's sister. Though reports vary on her presence, the insult was sufficient. Saladin invoked jihad not merely as retribution, but as a unifying slogan: liberate Jerusalem, return al-Quds to Islam, avenge the desecration of kin and treaty alike. Diplomacy could still have averted catastrophe. Raymond of Tripoli, the most seasoned Frankish lord, urged negotiation or at least patience until autumn rains. But Grandmaster Gérard de Riedefort, nursing grudges from previous defeats, argued that honor demanded battle. Under pressure from the Templar lobby and Queen Sibylla, King Guy overrode Raymond's caution. A general summons, the arrière-ban, flashed across castles from Acre to Kerak. Peasants staggered north with carts of barley, blacksmiths hammered spearheads, monks dusted off relics for battlefield blessing. By early July 1187, nearly every able knight in the Latin East mustered at Safuria, filled with crusading zeal and dangerously little logistical foresight. Saladin, encamped near Tiberias, could hardly believe his fortune. Through the scouts and Muslim villagers, he learned the Frankish host numbered about 20,000, including perhaps 200 heavy knights, and that they relied on the freshwater spring of La Saforie. If he could sever their path to water, he could force a march across arid basalt, turning European chainmail into personal ovens. On 2nd July, he launched a feint, besieging Tiberias, where Raymond's wife, Ashiva, held the citadel. Guy faced a choice: hold Safuria's water and risk Raymond's lands, or march east to relieve Tiberias. Pride tipped the scales. Despite opposing counsel, at dawn on 3rd July, the Crusader army broke camp and advanced toward the trap Saladin had spent 10 years perfecting. The curtain was set. Actor 1, a Frankish host marching in July heat, lugging relics and arrogance. Actor 2, a Muslim army that understood wind direction, water scarcity, and the lethal patience of encirclement. The stage, a volcanic plateau crowned by 2 rocky outcrops shaped like horns, the ancient hill of Hattin, and flanked by the waters of Lake Tiberias, glimmering tantalizingly out of reach. The final act would play out in furnaces of dust and smoke, altering Middle Eastern history and reshaping Crusader imagination for generations. The dawn of 3rd July 1187 paints the olive groves around Safaria red gold, but little shade reaches the Crusader column. Trumpets blare the réveil, squires cinch girths on destriers, champing to move. The army forms 3 divisions. At the vanguard ride the Templars under Gérard de Riedfort, white mantles stained with dust, flanked by the lancers of Raymond of Tripoli, who, despite opposing the march, obeys feudal duty. The center hosts King Guy, the Patriarch of Jerusalem, and the most sacred object in Latin Christendom, the reliquary of the True Cross, borne by Bishop of Acre under a silk canopy. Slightly behind straggle the Hospitallers under Master Roger de Moulins, anchoring the rear guard. Men-at-arms on foot drag water barrels already half empty, each gulp measured against an uncertain tomorrow. Saladin's scouts, Berber riders from the Maghreb, shadow the western horizon, counting bannermen, noting dust clouds. They race back to a command tent pitched near the village of Lubia, where Saladin pores over a parchment sketch of the plain. He orders Turcoman horse archers to harass the vanguard, cut stragglers, and above all set brush fires once the Franks descend toward the arid basin south of Turan. By mid-morning, the harassment begins. Arrows hiss like locusts, trumpets bleat to close ranks, shields form a rusting forest. The Templars charge but catch only dust. Turcomans melt away, loosing parting shots that slam into horses' rumps. Each chase costs Christian blood and, more precious, water. Skin bags tear under arrowheads. What liquid remains drains into yellow sand. Noon turns the basalt plateau into a skillet. The Crusader column reels toward the springs of Kafr Sabt, promised by Raymond as a halfway respite, but finds them already occupied by Mamluk cavalry. Saladin anticipated Guy's rout. His men poisoned or drained minor wells the night before. Despair spreads faster than heat stroke. Chronicler. Reynald records knights cutting the throats of their own mounts to drink warm blood. Priests chant psalms to ward off panic, but their lips crack mid-verse. Saladin now deploys his full orchestration. His army forms a crescent 4 miles wide. Syrian infantry on the left anchor near the basalt knolls. Egyptian Mamluks and Sudanese spearmen fortify the right. The center, under his nephew Al-Afdal, holds elite Ghulam cavalry, slingers, and Turkish Nafatin, flamethrower crews wielding naphtha bombs. Signals flash via polished bronze mirrors. The Muslim line advances at walking pace, showering arrows, then halts to let thirst and dust do more killing than steel. King Guy convenes a crisis council beside the reliquary. The bishop's cope is gray with ash from brush fires lit by naphtha to choke the Frankish lungs. Templar. Marshal James de Mailly argues for immediate assault to break through to Lake Tiberias. Hospitaller Master de Moulins insists the men are too exhausted. Raymond, eyes hollow, proposes a night march north to recapture Safuria's springs, but Guy fears retreat would be branded cowardice. The debate ends when arrows smack into the council's shields. Talking time is over. The Crusaders pitch camp on a low rise crowned by thorn scrub, a miserable position but the only defensible ground short of the horns themselves. They attempt to dig a perimeter with daggers. The volcanic soil laughs and sparks beneath the blades. Fires ring them in a crescent of orange. Turkish archers torch shrubs upwind, directing smoke into Christian lines. Horses bolt. Infantry faint. All night the Muslims chant takbir in rolling waves to deprive the Franks of sleep. Ibn al-Athir writes that Muslim morale rose as the moon at full, while Christian eyes dried like pots left in a kiln. Dawn, 4th of July. The sun lifts like a fiery scimitar over the eastern hills. Saladin mounts his gray charger, Qaswa, prays 2 rakats, then signals attack. Drums thunder. The crescent contracts. Syrian infantry pushes the Hospitaller rear. Egyptian foot tie down Raymond's wing. In the center, Al-Afdal's Mamluks target the true cross, recognizing its psychological gravity. Despite misery, Frankish heavy cavalry remains lethal in shock. At first contact, a wedge of Templars punches through thin lines of Turcoman archers, trampling men like wheat. But lacking reserves, they stall amid deeper infantry ranks and are enveloped. Gerard de Riedefort survives the first wave, hacking free, but most Templar brothers die within spear length of the relic they swore to protect. Raymond sees collapse looming and attempts break out west toward the Horns of Hattin, where basalt ridges could anchor a last stand. He leads 300 knights, what remains of his Provençal contingent, in a furious charge that slices through Kurdish horse. Saladin allows an opening, then closes the trap behind them. Raymond escapes, but at the cost of abandoning Guy's main body. The Chronicle of Reynald accuses him of betrayal. Muslim writers praise his courage, yet note the strategic futility. In the center, King Guy orders his standard lowered as a rally point. Infantry cluster around the true cross like bees to hive, but archers pick them off. Smoke blinds them. Heat murders hope. Saladin unleashes the naphtha. Clay flasks filled with naphtha sail through the air, burst in liquid flame across shields, cooking men alive. As outer rings crumble, Al-Afdal's G-Club cavalry presses inward, hacking at exposed necks. Bishop of Acre falls first. The reliquary bearer drops. A Syrian foot soldier seizes the cross amid chaos and drags it towards Saladin's line. Seeing the relic captured, morale breaks like snapped lance. Hospitallers attempt final charge downhill, but are swallowed by arrow clouds. Guy, encircled, surrenders after receiving assurances of life. His tent is pitched on the battlefield. Legend claims Saladin offers iced sherbet and cool water, then lectures on Reynald's treachery. Reynald himself is brought forth, refuses conversion, and is executed by Saladin's own saber, justice and deterrent in one stroke. By mid-afternoon, resistance ceases. The hill resembles a charnel kiln. Crusader dead number perhaps 15,000. Muslim losses a fraction, though enough to paint the volcanic dust black with coagulating blood. Saladin orders water for the prisoners but none for the relic, which is paraded across lines as proof that God favored crescent over cross. Strategically, the road to Jerusalem lies bare. Within weeks, Saladin captures Acre, Nablus, and ultimately the Holy City itself, though he spares its civilians, allowing ransoms rather than massacre. Europe recoils in shock. Pope Urban III allegedly dies upon hearing the news. His successor, Gregory VIII, issues the papal bull Audita Tremendi, calling for the Third Crusade, which will bring Richard Lionheart and Philip II to the Levant. Yet no crusade will ever restore the fragile kingdom lost that suffocating day at Hattin. Climb the Horns of Hattin today and you will stand on the scrubby ridges where basalt still radiates July heat even in winter. Shepherd boys tend goats among shards of medieval arrowheads. Bedouin guides point to a depression they claim was once flooded with Frankish blood. Yet the landscape is largely indifferent, rolling on with olive harvests and tourist buses bound for the Sea of Galilee. What lingers is the cautionary echo. A state, however divinely inspired, cannot survive strategic myopia, logistical neglect, and factional ego when facing an adversary who reads the terrain as scripture. Saladin's victory was not merely martial. It was ecological and psychological, a case study in weaponizing scarcity and patience. The fall of the true cross broke a myth that European armor could overcome Eastern climate, and in its splintered gold inlays we glimpse every empire that ever mistook zeal for strategy. If the dust and flame of Hattin fired your historical imagination, rally to our banner. Share this video with the strategist friend who thinks supply lines are secondary. Subscribe for weekly campaigns into battles that rewrote continents. And comment below whether you side with Raymond's caution or Ridefort's recklessness. Hit like harder than a hospitaler charge, and ring the notification bell so YouTube's algorithm never leaves you wandering thirsty in the desert of missed uploads. Remember, history favors those who study the ground they march on, so march back next week for another crucible where tactics meet fate.